Hi, everybody. It's Ashley of Day-to-Day Social Work. I am a private online tutor, and I specialize in assisting people to pass the license exam in social work on the master's and bachelor's level, and also the clinical level now. You can find me online at Day-to-Day Social Work on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So this evening or morning or afternoon or wherever you are and whatever time it is, we have a special guest. Her name is Jasmine Herbert, and she and I went to college together, and we also have been in a book club together recently. And so I wanted to bring her on here because she is definitely a career consultant, guru, like all of that good stuff. And so I wanted to bring her on here to answer some questions for us because I know we're always talking about career advancement and how we can take that next step after we get our licenses and that kind of stuff. So Jasmine, if you will introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your education, your credentials, your work history, and what you do.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much, Ashley. Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Herbert. Like Ashley said, I am a career and workforce consultant. I own and operate the Employee Handbook, Workforce and Career Solutions, and have been doing that for about a year and a half now. I've got a bachelor's degree in psychology, master's degree in human resource management, and I spent the bulk of my career, probably about 2/3 of it, in human resources in some capacity. Most recently as an HR talent partner for a large organization alongside of my consultant business. I've had positions in as a regional HR manager, HR coordinator, talent partner, corporate recruiter, and just a general HR generalist in industries such as healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, restaurants, all the things. So I've been doing this for quite some time, and I'm very excited to share some information with you guys tonight, or tomorrow, or in the morning, or whatever time you like.
Okay, so as you can see, Jasmine is very knowledgeable about the backdrop of employment. So I'm glad that you're here with us. And so I asked you all if you had any questions earlier this week or a few days ago, questions that you would ask a career consultant. And we had a couple questions that came through on the Instagram page, and I'm really trying to get y'all to be more interactive. So if I ask a question, it's probably because I'm going to have somebody come and address whatever the question is centered around. So we did have a few questions, and then we'll get Jasmine to answer those questions, and then I also have some questions as well so that we can get the most out of her time while she's here. So one of the first questions that we had on the Instagram page was whether or not you should list your resume in bullet points or if it should be a brief description, because in social work, we do so many things. We want to put everything on the resume to make sure the next employer knows that we are competent, we're capable. And so it becomes too much because they say you should have 1 page and then maybe it could be 2 pages, your resume. So can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, sure. So there's always a lot of debate on how much you should put on your resume. You hear so many different versions of this answer: 1 page only. Try to condense it down to, just that 1 page. Don't go more than 2 pages. In all honesty, what you really should focus on is not the length of your resume and how many pages it is. What you should focus on is putting the relevant information on your resume. So for example, with social work, like Ashley is saying, you have a lot. You want to showcase all the information so you don't miss a beat. You want to show, like, here's what I can do, here's the things that I've, experienced. But really what is most appreciated, especially from a corporate recruitment side, is being able just to show how you can add value to that position. So looking at the job description and saying, okay, what have I done and what have I done well, and what can I show that improve that I've done? So when you're listing out your information for each position, whether it's through maybe an internship or your actual positions, what's always appreciated for me is a combination of both. So a brief synopsis, like a 1 to 2 sentence summary of what it is that you've done at that position right underneath the role, and then start to bullet point out your achievements. A lot of times people just bullet point out their job description, and that's okay. As long as it shows how it ties back to the position you're applying for. So you want to show, how did I accomplish the things that I've done and what did I do? So, You know, what customer were you serving? What problems did you solve? You know, you want to show how you've added value to that role and how it translates to the next one. So it's really a combination of both. Sometimes if you end up with 2 pages, my resume is 2 pages, and it hadn't stopped a single thing. People want to see you and learn as much as they can about you, and that single snapshot is all you have because you're not in front of them yet. So you want to give them information, but give them relevant information that matters to the role that you're applying for.
Okay. So do you list like the company and the years that you worked there and your position? Because I know that's kind of how I was taught years ago, but I haven't really had to use a resume in a few years because I've been on the same job. So is that still the case where you list all of that out?
Yeah, so the standard format for a resume, that's easy on the reader's eyes because you're thinking of your audience. If I'm sending this out to a hiring manager, it could be a recruiter that's seeing it. It could be, you know, a ton of different people. So what is the best way for me to showcase who I am quickly? So you want to, obviously you want to put your name, contact information up front. Make sure if you're going to put your phone number up there that your voicemail box is clear and we can leave a message for you. Sometimes I run into not being able to do that for people, and it kind of, we're moving, we're going. So we're calling people trying to get interviews scheduled, and we don't really have the time to double back to do that. So we're on to the next person. So making sure you're checking your voicemail box, make sure your email address is correct. If you have a LinkedIn, go ahead and pop it up there because they're going to look you up on any type of, and it's not really a great thing to do, but sometimes people will look up to see if you have a Facebook. And that's just people who are amateurs at recruiting, but they'll look up your LinkedIn first, and then they will maybe try to find you on social media. So make sure that's either locked down or cleaned up tight, so you don't have to, you know, deal with that. And yeah, you are listing out your jobs in order. Most people, and there's different versions of a resume. There's a chronological resume, there's functional resumes, there's CVs you can write. And really what you want to do is just showcase your experience. And sometimes people will put all of their experience, like every single job they've had. It's not recommended to do that unless those jobs are relevant to the role. Like no one cares that, you know, I had a job at Chick-fil-A or I worked at Rainbow, and these are real jobs that I've had. So they don't, unless it's something that you can showcase, here's what I did at Chick-fil-A or Rainbow that matters to this role, then just leave it off. And if it creates a gap in employment, there's a way that I do for my clients where I can shape their resume in a way that even if there is areas where there's gaps or missing pieces, that you can fill in the blanks with relevant information. It can be through a skill set. It could be through a summary page. There's always ways to not really hide from your story because your story is yours. You know, if you did have a gap in employment, it could have been due to a layoff. You may have you had to take care of a family member, or you just needed time off, whatever that reason is, that's your story. And a lot of times people will, you know, feel ashamed of that, but it's nothing, it's life. And you can't expect to always have a perfect piece of paper. You just have to be able to tell your story in a way that resonates with the employer. So listing it out in that way is very important. Any relevant education, certifications, systems and tech, competencies, just everything that you can do. If I'm looking at you, just pretend like you're introducing yourself. So I always have my resumes written out where it's like the name. Hi, my name is Jasmine. I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I've got a master's degree in HR. Here's my competencies. I've worked here, here, and here for this length of time. Here was my role. So these are just, if you're reading it out like that, that's how your resume should look. It's basically an introduction to you on paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some fun stuff. So
yes.
A while back, there was this whole thing about putting your picture on your resume and maybe laminating your resume and doing all those little quirky things to kind of stand out. So what's your take on that?
Don't do it. Please don't. Okay, so I don't know, maybe it's just us, could just be being shady. I don't know. But a lot of times recruiters, we're on LinkedIn, we see it. You only really see pictures on your resume if you're an intern. Like college students currently, they will do that like religiously. I think a lot of them were actually being taught in their career centers to put their picture on their resume. I very rarely see it. When I do see it, it's just like, oh, okay, that's it. It always catches me off guard. I'm not gonna lie. Like my reaction is, that's Or you'll see it on very like creative resumes, like marketing, like graphic designers. I'll see that a lot on graphic design resumes, communications and PR, people who are always like forward facing. It's not so weird when it's a position like that. But for something that is professional based, it could be like if it's an accountant or social work, for example, I don't think it adds any value to it. And it's just always a matter of opinion. There's no right or wrong way, but I will tell you, it always catches me off guard when I see it. And it's just not necessary. It doesn't do anything for you. I think if anything, it's more of a distraction.
Okay.
Laminating your resume, are people still, if people are still sending in actual paper resumes, I guess I've never seen it. Was that like a bunch of people are asking, like, should they do that?
Oh, see, I didn't even think about that because, yeah, so everything pretty much is electronic
It's
now.
electronic now. I did get one in the mail not too long ago, and it was on some really nice paper. So I can see if you're trying to get somebody's attention, now it's one of the ways to stand out. I've had people send donuts with their resume on it. That will get your attention. We don't eat the donuts, but you definitely will pay attention to the resume. And I've seen people mail it now because you're up against on average about 300 to 400 or 500 candidates at a time, depending on when the position was posted, and you've got to stand out. Some people will call, some people will mail in their resume, and you do pay attention to it if it's something that's different than the norm, because recruiters are going through those resumes and they're trying to sift through the most qualified. Some even rely on, you'll hear it a lot, ATS, applications or resumes, which stands for applicant tracking systems, which basically automatically weed out the ones who are qualified and not. And there's a way to make sure that your resume gets to the top there by pulling in and sprinkling in some of those keywords that the job description has. I do not recommend copying and pasting the job description. Please don't do that. Don't copy and paste the job description. Simply because we can see that that's been done, and it doesn't really tell your story. It may get you to the top, but when you actually have to talk about it in an interview or explain how you've done what we're asking you to do and you can't do it, it only gets you so far. So being genuine and honest in your resume, if you've done pieces of that, by all means, throw it in there. Not word for word, say it in your own words so you can stay true to who you are and what you've done from beginning to end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've heard, and a lot of other social workers that I've talked to have said that when they try to apply for the VA, that there are words that they look for in that same system that you were just talking about. So
yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing about the resume, as far as aesthetics, what about borders? And I know we're not on paper anymore.
No, that's fine. It's a valid question, because I'm telling you, if you look up just kind of like just the rules and guidelines for resume writing, it is like thousands, if not millions of pieces of information online that will tell. It's so much conflicting information. People just don't like, what's the right thing to do? And for borders on the resume, that's nice to see. Again, I think the main thing that you want to have on there for aesthetic pieces now is just that it's easy on the eyes. Like right now, what I'll do, I have two different versions of resumes that I write. I have like more of like a modern look, and then I have one that I know is going to be able to get through the applicant tracking system, because sometimes those very fancy resumes, they get interpreted wrong, and the tracking system can't read it, and so it kicks you out. So you want to just make sure, if it is fancy, it's something that you might send, directly to a recruiter on LinkedIn. You might have two different versions of one that's, sent directly to a person that doesn't have to get through that. But just having it just straight to the point, I think is more important to get through it than how pretty it is. It's nice that it looks nice, but a border, I don't think is going to throw anything off. That's nice to see too, but it's not as important as it is to get through and really share what it is and who you are.
Okay. What about a professional summary?
Excuse me. Love those. Please have one. In place of that objective statement, I still see that a lot of people, that used to be a thing like back in the day, where you write an objective statement like, my objective is to secure a career as a blah, blah, blah in this field. And it's like, we know that because you applied. We know you want to do that. So tell us a professional summary. Again, it's kind of like that introduction. You got maybe like 10 seconds to capture the reader's eye. And the goal of a professional summary is to highlight who you are and really kind of grab your reader's attention with those qualifiers that say, you know, what you've accomplished, you know, what skills and competencies you have, and just a few value added pieces. So it could read, you know, anything like, you know, I'm a effective communicator in the field of human resources, specializing in recruitment and diversity training. Let's see, off the top of the head, eliminated contract recruitment by 40%. You want to throw some stats in there, some numbers, you know, saved the organization over $15,000 in, you know, recruitment fees or turnover or whatever it is. It's like, okay, here's who I am and here's what I do and here's how I've done it. It's just 3 quick sentences, and there's really important to be able to see that, because now I'm interested. Like I see who you are, I see where you are, and I see what you can do. Now I'm interested to keep reading more. And that is what will intrigue your reader. So you want to do all the good stuff up front, and then just kind of bring them on down and keep reading. If I'm down to the bottom, I'm pretty sure I'm going to now interview you, because I'm interested to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you can bring to the table. Okay, another thing that I add too about is that when you read a job description, if you notice the language that they're using and what you can almost feel what an organization holds value in. So sometimes you'll see that they're talking more about education, your certifications. They want to know that you've got, you know, the bandwidth to handle a certain amount of, you know, clients or whatever that looks like. So when you can feel what they're looking for, you want to show, okay, I can do that, and you bring that to the top. So sometimes you'll put your education at the top just to say, yes, I'm qualified. You don't have to go look for my qualifications. They're here. I can do that. Or anything that they're looking for specifically. And you can find those soft skills within the job description by looking at the essential functions and then looking at the preferred qualifications. There's ways to kind of break that out to see what it is they're looking for and sprinkle that through and weave it into your resume that makes sense for that role. So you may have a few different versions of your resume. It's not a one size fits all thing, because different organizations will require different, you know, skill sets for you to have. So you may have a few different versions of your resume that speak to the needs of that organization.
Okay, so the professional summary, you said 3 sentences, so we don't need any long paragraphs, but in line with that, what do you think about cover letters?
Love cover letters. There's always an opportunity for you to expand a little bit more beyond your resume. Your resume is more on like that tactical, strategic side of who you are. A cover letter brings your personality out. And I think it's really nice to see. I appreciate cover letters. There's also there's a lot of conflicting information there about should you write one. Some companies will require you upload one. So I think it's always nice to have that standard template that you can work your way through and kind of customize for that role. But I like them. I like reading them because I get to feel the person. I get to see what their passions are. I get to hear a little bit more about their story. More, and you can add more. This is a way too how you can add more of your experience within your cover letter if you don't want to have a 3, 4, 5 page long resume. You can do a little bit more in that way so that it doesn't have to, you know, you don't have to have that super long document without really explaining who you are. You can just weave it in there, bullet points in there. You can summarize some things. You can tell a story about, you know, how much experience you have in there. It's a little bit more free flowing, and we like to see personality in a cover letter. So I love them, and I think they're a great asset and a supplement to your resume.
Okay. So the one thing that has always thrown me and that I don't really understand or really know what it is the curriculum. It's like they call it a CV.
The CV.
Yeah. What is that?
That's like a resume on the education side. So that one is usually really long. And that's the one where, so for example, if I'm applying to be an adjunct professor, that's where you get a little bit more in detail about your experience. So you can put your jobs and your academic experience there too. So if you've ever had any type of work published, if research projects that you've done, it's all about education. And that one, you can talk more about certifications, but those are allowed. You're allowed to have long ones on that one because those are education based. They usually go for, you know, I would say on average, I've seen at minimum 4 to 5 pages. because these are like doctorate level, could be master's level, and they've done a ton of work that they want to showcase. And lots of it could be centered around classes they've taught, and then the statistics there is very detailed. So CVs are usually generally for education-based careers. I mostly see them with professors or very like high level healthcare roles. I've seen them there because a lot of them have written and published work, and they want to show that if they're trying to be like a director of their department, it's really important to kind of see that too. So CVs are reserved for those industries mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's good information to know though, because for anybody that wants to go into, because, you know, I don't know many people who get their doctorate in social work. Normally we stop at license, but there are some people who want to get their doctorate and become professors and researchers for social work. So that's good for them to know that. I'm done with school.
Are you done? You go get that doctorate. Go get.
So for those of y'all who, you know, who want to do, and I do want to do some teaching at the collegiate level as well at some point. I got too much going on right now, but for those of y'all who want to do teaching, like she said, on the adjunct level, or you want to be tenured and all the other kind of stuff, that's what that would be for. And so that's good information to have. So and that's like on a macro level. So that's a good segue for our next question that came from Instagram. How do you go about researching macro social work jobs and entry-level jobs that don't require a license?
That's a good question, because I've actually helped a couple of clients last summer who are transitioning into getting their licenses, or they're finishing up a degree in social work. And part of it was, you know, I need experience to get to the role that I want to get to eventually. And that's always been like the problem. It's like, I want to get to this, but they're asking, they want me to bring in all these years of experience, but nobody will give me experience. It's like,
that's
so
like
how do you
every
do that? It's every job. It's every job. It's like, well, how am I supposed to do it if nobody will let me do it? So really what you want to do is keep in mind your end game. So you have to start with the end in mind. What I mean by that is, okay, so if I want to get to this role eventually at my career, this is my goal career, this is where I want to be, my goal position. Read the job descriptions, like take a ton of positions and kind of get to, like, find that title. You can go on Indeed, LinkedIn, just kind of create a spreadsheet of what it is that they're asking for. What skill sets do they require? What, if they require a license, what are they requiring for that? What education do they need? Like, what is it that they want? And then you work your way backwards from there. So that way you're not wasting your time, you know, doing little meaningless things that won't add value to it once you get to that point. So you start with the end in mind and work your way back. And that's how you can position yourself to get to those roles that make sense, that will then add value to your resume when you do apply for those roles, because you already know what they're looking for. So you can kind of cheat the system and go around the back and like, okay, this is what you want. Here's what I'm going to give you. And the way that you find those is just simply by a search. You know, there's tons of job search engines. Everybody knows Indeed, LinkedIn, Career Builder, Monster, Glassdoor, Salary.com is actually another job search engine too. LinkUp is another one that's pretty new. There's a lot of them. Even Google, if you Google jobs, they have like a job section. And you'll find things like behavior specialists, community intervention specialists, case managers, roles like that. And depending on which route you're taking your social work career in will determine what type of role you're going to take. And knowing that you have that end in mind, sometimes you do have to take jobs that you may not love right now. And that's okay. That's positioning yourself to get to where you want to go. And once you have that focus, it doesn't really affect you very much, in the sense of not really understand, you know, it's not your end result. You know, you're not going to be there for the long term. You just it's a stepping stone to the next position, but you're still getting that very valuable experience, because you can't skip steps to get to that. You need to be able to go through the process to really hold that value once you get to the end. So it's a lot. It's a work. You have to dedicate that time to it and really understand who you are and what you want. But just to get around it, you got to start. You got to go through the process. You got to start where you want to end up, if that even makes sense.
No, I totally agree, because with those macro jobs, like I totally agree, because you do have to have that foundational knowledge and experience of the micro level of working one-on-one, because we all complain about how when we get into certain jobs, the people at the top, they don't know what's going on in the trenches, and they
Right.
don't know. So you want to be one of those people when you get to the top in one of those macro level positions where you're CEO or executive director of a nonprofit or a for-profit company or a hospital or whatever department, hospice or whatever it is, whatever
Right.
area, is good for you to have that that experience on the micro level, so that people can't complain and say, well, you've never done this and you haven't been in the trenches.
You don't
Well,
know what
yeah.
it's like over here. Like,
Right.
yes, I do. Absolutely. Social work's not like HR. It sounds like, yeah, because I'm telling you, once you have to start, you have to get that. And it's not even just because, oh, we want you to go through it. Like, no, if you skip steps, you are going to fail. And that's just point blank. A lot of it is, and you might be able to skate by a little bit. You might be able to get through and kind of, fumble your way through. But when you have that foundation, there's nothing that anybody can tell you about what just came before you, because you just went through it. You were there. You spent the time to learn it, and now you can build on it. You feel much more confident rolling into that next role, and then you're just kind of snowballing. And every role that you get is a building block for the next one. So you're doing yourself a disservice by not starting there. And when you do get that, you are much more appreciative, and you can then in turn reach back and help somebody behind you. So it's really important to be able to do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Another question we had from Instagram was, how far back on your resume do you go? Is it 5 years, 10 years? I know you spoke about whatever is relevant.
Yeah.
And so can you give us some insight on that?
I would say for that, again, if it's 10 years of relevant information, by all means, go ahead and do that. A lot of times, clients who are more seasoned will be a little bit more reserved to do that, because they don't want someone to have an unconscious bias about their age. I do a lot of recommendations for taking your graduation year off of your, like on your degree. I don't put the year that somebody's graduated, because I've actually heard, like in debrief sessions with managers many companies ago, it's just like they graduated in 1995. Are they going to be able to keep up with technology? And those are things that you don't want people assuming about you. So there's ways to kind of add that experience in there, and you can again sprinkle it through in different ways, whether it be through just competencies that you've gained from those experiences, or it can be, sprinkled into your professional summary. Maybe you've done some work and you can talk about what you've done there. But 5 to 10 years, if it's relevant. I wouldn't put anything that doesn't mean anything for the role. I would only go as far back as necessary. But then again, if you're worried about dating yourself, there's ways to take it out. But just keep it straight to the point. Make sure it just adds value to that next position. So there's nothing wrong with going back in time. I actually like to see, because it shows that you've had progression. You then can also tell your story there too. Again, this is your story. There's no shame in what it is that you've done. This is your experience, and everything that you can do that you've done to this point is valuable. It's gotten you to where you are now. So instead of running from it, just shift it and shape it in a way that is that you're proud to share it. So I don't mind seeing that, and it's not uncommon to see positions that back that far, as long as they're within the realm of the role. We don't want to see back when you were a store manager in college, because it doesn't do anything for us.
Okay. So and speaking of I guess longevity on the job, what do you think is, and I know it's different for different fields, but I have several conversations with friends about how, we're not like our parents, where our parents would stay on a job for 30 years and retire, and we don't stand for these toxic environments, and we'll leave
and
after a year and all that kind of stuff. So like, coming through. Put that down. Okay. So yeah, and exactly, because I know I've left the job because it was too toxic, and and it stresses you out, and it really does wear on your health. So ideally, looking from an HR standpoint, what's too much jumping around, like every year or every 2 years, or what's a warning flag for you?
Definitely when I see people who leave within months, it's just like, okay, that's going to be enough. Like you literally just started and you're already like, what happened? Like, don't even put on your resume. I think my resume is, listen, there's a joke that we have like with my family, like the girl just changes job. And it's not that I'm changing jobs, it's within the same industry. I think it's important for you to be able to have valid reasons why. I think even now, because of COVID and the pandemic, people are more lenient to seeing, position changes, job hopping, I guess you can call it. A year, and it depends on how many years back that 1 year span is. So if you've got 1 year every 5 years, a new job every 5 to 6 years, is okay. It raises an eyebrow, and for people, and it just depends on who's looking at it. But if you're looking just like a standard recruiter, if I'm looking at it, it makes me question. I will ask you the question, like, tell me what happened in each of these positions. So you have to be prepared to share why you left each role. And sometimes those things are verified. So if you get to the end of the end of the process, and now you're, have the job, it's kind of like, okay, well, we might have to verify some of those things, and make sure you told the truth, because that employment verification will come back and bite you if you lied about it. So a year and a half, those are okay. It just depends on how far back that is. And then what those reasons were, because again, we're human. It could be for a number of different reasons. And I always coach my managers, do not judge before somebody's giving you an opportunity to tell you what it is. If you like what you see, if you like their education, you like, where they are, and you like what you see currently right now, give them the opportunity to tell you themselves. So for those managers who don't have coaches like that, just be prepared to be able to share your story, and be okay with somebody not being okay with it. Sometimes it may work and sometimes it may not. But that's your story. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Are we doing okay on time?
Let's see. Yeah, it's still going. I think we're good.
Okay.
We're good. No, it's not going to cut us off.
Okay.
This is good.
So I only have a few more questions.
Okay.
Let's see. And I'm trying to make sure we get the ones that are the most important. So we kind of talked already about, adding volunteer, internship, that kind of stuff. So we'll go through that one. But as far as references, how important is it to have an actual reference who's not your friend, who's gonna talk good about you? Like, I think it's really important to have like actual colleagues that know you on a working level versus just been my friend for 10 years and they've never worked with you. So what about that?
That is important. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Like, not having somebody who is your BFF from college. I mean, you can have them in there too, but you need to have them. Maybe what's really impressive is an old boss. If you left, and that's why it's important to leave positions on good terms, so you can have those in your bag if you need it later on. A colleague, like a direct peer to you that was in that same position, or even someone else in the organization. Just having a variety of different types of people with things that they can add about your character. Reference checking is only character checking. They're trying to see if you are who you say you are, which is also right aligned with the verification of employment verification of employment and the reference check. So the verification is going to go back to your old jobs. You have to sign off on an agreement for them to be able to do that. But they'll go back and just verify your title, your length of employment, and what you've done. They shouldn't be verifying any salary, so don't let anybody do that. But that's on that professional side. But then for the things that you provide, like you were saying, that variety of people, it could be a professional colleague, an old supervisor, somebody close to you for that character piece of it as well. And then just as many, most time it's only like 3, they ask for 3 references, 3 to 5 professional references. So just give them at least a minimum. Also, another thing that people forget to do is ask your references to be references. So
I'm literally thinking about that right now, Jasmine, because I literally, like, as soon as you start talking about it, I put down 3 people people for my new job that I'm starting on Monday, and I was like, dang, I need to call them and tell them that I put them down.
Yes, give your people a heads up, because you never know. I mean, I've had so many people call. I'm like, hey, I'm calling for, and I'm like, and this person, I'm like, I haven't called this person in years. I didn't know they still have my number. So give as much as you can. Give them a heads up. Tell them that you're going to be receiving a call from this company. Here's the role. They're only going to ask you about this. Just talk about it. You can prep the people too. Like, you can tell them what they're going to ask, so they're not going to be caught off guard. A lot of times too, those references come in the form of like an email request, which is even better because some people don't like talking. So you'll see some of those come through too. So you can just prep your ref, but please make sure you tell them somebody's calling. Because if you don't, it can really throw some things off. So it's awkward for the person calling, and it's awkward for the person getting the call. So just make sure everybody knows.
Okay. Let's see. So 2 more things, and then I think that's all I have. But so with the pandemic going on and being a stay-at-home mom, someone on Instagram asked about how to navigate, I guess, the job market while being a stay-at-home mom during the pandemic. And, I know this is new still for everybody. Yeah. So I know maybe some employers are a little bit lenient with childcare needs, and I know that's a sticky subject because we can't really ask someone if they have kids and stuff like that. But even on my job, and we've always been remote, but we're even more remote now that we're in the pandemic. And I've been on a call and somebody had their kid. It was a social call though. It was for a holiday gathering. But what do you think? And I won't ask like a direct question about that because we don't know, it's so new. But what do you see from your experience the future being with job searching for all of these remote positions and being at home?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we actually, like on the company side of things, we see that more and more. And I will tell you, the conversations that have been had at the top of the pandemic, and just even, it's almost a year later, I can't believe that. But even a year later, you start to see like people, because now they're experiencing it too, the empathy seems to be a little bit more, wide range. So now that they understand what it's like on the other side, it's like, okay, well, we need to be more accommodating. So you do see that with a lot of companies. So those remote positions are popping up everywhere. But I think what's important for individuals or candidates who are staying at home right now, who need that flexibility, just being upfront about it, understanding what your position is right now. Like, don't try to squeeze yourself into a situation that you can't manage long term. I've seen it a lot where you apply for it because you qualify, you can do it, and maybe it's remote 3 to 5 times a week, maybe it's like a flex schedule, but you know that you're going to have to like really finagle some things to get childcare, or not be able to have, you don't want to have that bad impression up front. So don't try to squeeze yourself into a situation you can't manage long term. So just being honest with yourself and your capacity that you can take on, only target those positions. And if it can feel limiting at first, but in the end, if you put yourself in a position where you can't manage it, it's only going to affect your performance. You don't want people to think things about your ability to do the job because of your situation at home. And sometimes you don't want to disclose that so early on in the game. Like, you don't want to say, hey, I need to be off on these days because I've got this when you just started a job. You don't want to do that. And some places are accommodating, some aren't. But just so you can avoid those awkward situations, just target the ones for sure can manage your schedule, and have those questions answered up front by the recruiter or whoever reaches out to you first. Just make sure that you're all on the same page about what those scheduling requirements are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I like the route that we're going though with this remote work and this flexibility, because it opens up opportunities across the country. You don't have to just be in your local area, and you can now, branch out and be qualified to work in California if you wanted to. You can do so many different things. So it's nice to be able to see. I think it's more valuable than people can see right now, but it opens up a lot of opportunities for both employers and candidates, because now we can cross borders and get more people. The applicant pool is bigger now.
Right.
A lot more qualified candidates. So it's nice to be able to have that flexibility.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree, because I've been looking at some positions doing therapy in different places.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to look into licenses in those different
Oh
states and all
yeah,
that different
get dual
things.
licensure and border
Mhm.
states, and yeah, it's a lot. You got it
Okay,
no
so
better than me.
my last question, let me just make sure I don't have anything else here. Yeah, so my last question is one that I talk with my social work colleagues on day-to-day social work about all the time, and it's negotiating your salary.
Mm.
And I think it intimidates a lot of people to ask for more, or
Mm-hmm.
to ask, or they don't know where to start, because of course it feels like the employer is, they're hiding their hand. They may be willing to pay you more, and you don't really know what to kind of start out with. And then job descriptions don't really have the salary range on a lot of them. So you
Yeah.
don't really know what to ask for. And, I know personally, when I started my job at the hospital, I didn't negotiate, and I
Mm-hmm.
beat myself up about it for about a year.
Yeah.
And then I finally was like, okay, from here on out. And the lady she seemed like she was prepared for me to come back and
Mm-hmm.
ask for something else. But the fact that she gave me what I was asking for, I was just
Yeah.
shocked. I'm like, oh, really? So I'm
Like,
good. And I just didn't even think to negotiate. But yeah,
mm-hmm.
so can you tell us about how do we go about negotiating or asking for what we think we're worth?
I love this question so much, and I will tell people anytime I get this question, it is absolutely necessary. Negotiation is scary, because by the time you get to this point, it's just like you don't want to. I think the feeling is, I've had that feeling. Listen. I wasn't always just, oh, I know what to do, know what to say. Like, I'm literally living the things that I'm telling you right now, and I'm kind of like I'm walking through it with you. So it is scary, especially when you get to the point of, like you were saying, if somebody's offering you, like you told them you wanted X amount of dollars and they gave you that, like, what is there else to talk about? We already
Right.
gave you my money. I don't need nothing else. But it's expected. Like, as a recruiter, I built in a buffer, because I just figured, I built in that buffer for negotiation. If somebody didn't negotiate, I kept dollars in my budget, and I didn't have to use it. But if I'm expecting you to do that, so always negotiate. It doesn't matter if you ask for, $75,000 and they give you 125. Tell them you need 140. Like, it's in their budget, and the worst they can tell you is no. What I used to think when I didn't negotiate is, if I ask for more money, they're gonna just tell me, just forget it, go on, we don't want you anymore. I would be
Right.
that dramatic, like. But by the time they get to the point of making you an offer, you beat everybody else. They're not making anybody else the offer. This is now a conversation about how to make your life better at work. So you can negotiate so many different things. You can negotiate the salary, and you can do it within a range. So this is another thing. Being prepared to negotiate happens long before you even get to that point of having that conversation. So when you walk into, job strategy, and you're thinking, okay, I want to apply for this role, do some research first. Like, understand, in your area, in that industry, in that arena, how much does on average does a person make with my education level, my skill level, in maybe the South, or wherever you're located, because it's regional too. Different jobs will hold different salaries based on where you're located. Even use that same rule for remote jobs. If a job is in Seattle, make them pay you Seattle dollars, even if you're in South Carolina. So just make sure you do that research first, so you walk in knowing what to expect. So when you get to that point, you have a good understanding of about how much you should be making. And nobody can lowball you. And so you understand. And if they do, this is another thing. Sometimes you walk into it and somebody will give you a salary or offer you a salary that is not even in line with what it is that you know that you're capable of, or your experience level. And you can bring that research and say, like, here is what the research that I've done, in this area. I was expecting a salary range of this. Is that something that you guys can do? It's either a yes or a no. And
Right.
so it's just a matter of asking, because we're expecting you to ask for it, and we're hoping that you do. I will tell you that I hope that people negotiate, because it shows me that they understand what they're walking into, and that they understand their value in their work.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a lot more easy for us to have that conversation, because now we see you, we see who you are, and you carried yourself through from the application to the interview, not to this piece. Like, don't backtrack now because you were confident up to this point. Keep it, hold on to it. You can negotiate your salary. You can negotiate PTO. You can negotiate working from home. That was what we used to do back before all the things now, but you can negotiate your schedule. There's so many different things, benefits, things that matter to you. Just start throwing them out there. The worst they can say is no. But if they say yes, you got,
Right.
you got a lot more money and a lot more PTO or whatever else you're asking for. And it's always so exciting when they say yes, because normally they do.
Let's see.
That's a good question.
I think those are all of my questions. Do you have anything else that you think that we kind of missed out on, that you want to add?
Interviewing. Any questions about interviews?
Oh yeah. So with interviewing, I've done panel interviews before, and it was so kind of like intimidating because and I think almost everybody, especially when we were in college, had that panel interview with the knife company where they were trying to get college kids to sell their knife sets. I can't remember the name of it, but like everybody was having those interviews, and it was a panel interview.
And it's just like, why we got to do that?
Yeah, I just remember like it was me sitting there, and there was like 4 people, and they were sitting in like a U shape, and it was so intimidating. But I kind of got into it because I wasn't as afraid as I thought I was going to be. So like with panel interviews versus the one-on-one interviews, any insights on that? And then also as far as like attire, because like now in the world today, a lot of things are more tolerated and acceptable. People want to see who you are as an individual. So I think some people are more accepting of tattoos or having your shoulders out, which I would never wear a shirt like this to an interview, but you know, depending on the job, there's like a lot of things that are more acceptable. So any insight on attire and on the panels versus the one-on-one?
So with a panel interview, it is intimidating because it's like you're trying to, I think a lot of times people get in their head because you're trying to manage so many different personalities and questions, and you spend more time doing that than answering the question. Because it is intimidating. Like, this is not like an abnormal thing. Like, I've gone through panel interviews myself, and it's not fun. And so having been on that side, what I do now to prepare people if they don't ask the question is, and I think this is a good practice for anybody to do, if you're, because sometimes they don't tell you. Sometimes you just walk in, it's just like a bunch of people just sitting down, or people just start popping up on Zoom. And it's like, who are all these people in this interview? Ask the question. If somebody says, hey, we would love to reach out, we want to, interview you for this role on this day, this time, ask the question, who am I interviewing with? Please ask that question, because then you'll get so you can do some research too. So they'll say, oh, you're interviewing just with a couple of people. I need their names and their titles. So that way you can get a better understanding of who is going to be in the room. So you can tailor your conversation to that person. So if you know you're going to be talking to the hiring manager and their subordinate, which would be your peer, that's one layer of conversation. But if you're talking to the hiring manager, his director, the president, the CEO, it's just like, okay, that's a whole different way I need to have this interview and be a little bit more prepared. You never want to be caught off guard by that, because, it's just not something that will reflect well on you, even though they should have prepared you for it. They don't do what you don't ask. They'll do what they're used to doing. And so for those people who don't have the courtesy or the, being able just to prepare you for that, you just always take up for yourself. You have to be an advocate for yourself. And so being able to ask those questions, ask who am I interviewing with, what's their title, and go look them up on LinkedIn so you can do some research. Go find out some things, because then when you're talking to them, you remember their faces. It helps to calm you down a little bit, because now you see that they're humans. Here's what they've done. If they ask questions about you job hopping and somebody else was a job hopper, well, you can say very similar to what's his face over here. I fashion my career the same way. So it helps to kind of bring some a human element back into it, so you don't feel nervous about it. And then for attire, right now we do, it's a lot of Zoom interviews, a lot of Teams, Skype, whatever it is. Just make sure your background is clear. Like y'all don't want to see on the other side, but I made sure at least this right here was good for y'all tonight. But make sure your background is good. That at least you're dressed. You know, you have on a nice top that is not wrinkled. Please turn your camera on. Oh my God, there's so many interviews which you would not believe people don't turn their cameras on. It's like, how can I
What?
see? I'm just like, can you please turn your camera on? I'm like, oh, I'm not prepared. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh
you don't want
no.
this job. Y'all turn your cameras on, please turn them on. And it's okay, like we'll turn ours on. Nobody wants to have the camera, even the people interviewing. We don't want to, but we do it because it's in lieu of face to face. You won't be able to hide yourself in person. Don't hide yourself on camera. So, and another tip for camera interviews, you can sticky note your words. So if you're forgetful, or if you think that you're gonna fumble over things, I had sticky notes like all around my monitor. And so if I knew they were gonna ask about the strengths and weakness question, which is whatever, that question, you know,
That's a good idea.
asking about things, how you want to introduce yourself, you know, just whatever it is that can prompt your memory, because a lot of times people just go blank in an interview. It is what it is. Sticky notes all around, because we can't see that you're looking around. It just looks like you're looking at the camera. So if you have to have like something over top of it, we don't know that you're reading. We just think that you're answering a question because we're too focused on ourselves. Everybody's always looking at themselves on the camera anyway. They're very rarely looking at you. Do that. And just write it down. It's okay to take notes. It is absolutely okay to take notes. So do that, and so you can maintain that conversation. But then also when somebody asks you, tell me about yourself, only go into the professional side of things. Like I've had people come and say, well, I'm divorced with 2 kids and I just moved to the area. And those are conversations that you want to reserve for when you get the job, when you tell your coworkers about you as a person. Stick to, you know, I'm Jasmine. I've been in this industry for blah, blah, blah. I've got experience here. Just keep it very for the job, and then roll it into why you're here. And I'm here because of this position is my next step in the next step of progression in my career. So just keep it, stay away from the personal side. Okay. It's like, okay, that's nice, but tell me about like your actual self, like your career self.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I could do this all night.
No, and I just really, really, really do appreciate you being here, because obviously, as we've seen, you are a wealth of knowledge. And so make sure, again, to tell everybody where we can find you on social media, on your website, what services do you provide to your client, and how they can reach you for service.
My website, so my company is called the Employee Handbook Career and Workforce Solutions. My website is EMP, like short for employee, handbook.com. So emphandbook.com. And services I provide. So I do just initial consult calls just to kind of walk through if you're interested in kind of walking through your or creating like a professional brand. My whole purpose is to create a well-rounded professional brand for yourself. So that is services like a resume. It could be documents like your resume, cover letter, mock interviews. I do LinkedIn profile like overhauls just to make sure that everything that you have on paper looks good also on the net. Cover letters, career coaching, like one-on-one, just kind of coaching. So if after, you know, you get an interview, you kind of want to know what happens next, just kind of like an HR on demand situation. So if you just need like an HR buddy to call, I've got those services. But initial calls are free, just to kind of talk through like a 30-minute assessment to kind of tell me your concerns, like uncover your areas of opportunity, and then I lay out a plan for you to begin services. But I've got social media. It's just the Employee Handbook on Facebook, Instagram. It's Handbook Jazz on Twitter, but not really nothing going on over there right now. But just Instagram and Facebook is where you can find me. I do a lot. I post every day, helpful tips and tricks and just advice on just navigating through a career world. It's not solely on resumes and interviews, but just how to navigate through a corporate environment. And it's just information that I feel is valuable for the people to know. So I try to share as much as I can.
Okay. So, of course, like she said, you said it's an initial consult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
so
you can book that on the website or just DM me. Either way, it's pretty wide.
Okay.
It's wide open.
we'll put all of your contact information in the description box
Okay.
below. So if y'all want to figure out how to get in touch with her on social media or her website,
Yeah, I love
then
that.
and I always tell my colleagues that, you know, this is something that you have to be willing to invest in your own self. So with my tutoring services, I always tell people, I'm going to give you the best that I have. I'm going to go above and beyond, and make sure that you have a quality product, but you have to be willing to see it as an investment in yourself, and not just, oh, I have to go and spend this money and do that. So this is why I have Jasmine here, is because clearly she's a wealth of knowledge. She's very professional. She knows what she's talking about. I want to call her an expert. So
don't do it, because I'm going to retire right now.
She has proven results. And so, you know, we always have to be willing to invest in ourselves to get to the next step. And, you know, whether it's with our degree, with our license, with resume prep, interview prep, and that kind of thing, because we can always learn from somebody who knows more than us in those areas. So I definitely would encourage you all to reach out to Jasmine, follow her on her Instagram, Facebook. If she has a YouTube that she's gonna start up, whatever platforms that she has, make sure you follow her, because you can never have too many tips, and she's always going to be up to date on what's current, because this is her profession. This is what she's going to stay up to date on. So make sure you follow her. Reach out to her if you have questions, if you want to book her for services, if you want the consultation, all of that. So make sure y'all reach out to her. Any final words before we end?
This was so much fun. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to as many people as I can, as many people that will listen to what I have to share, because I think it's really important. I started the employee handbook just based on just watching good people just be turned away for jobs, or not get opportunities that I know they're qualified for and that they know they're qualified for, just for a lack of information. I'm like, if I can be the bridge between the companies and the people to get people what they need and what they want to succeed, like, why not just do that? I'm right here in the middle of it, and I get to see both sides. So my goal is always to share everything that I know, so that way people can continue to grow, continue to have as many opportunities, get as much money as they want, like all of the things, and have just a very satisfying career that they can feel confident in. So thank you so much again, Ashley. Any questions you guys have, you can leave them in your Facebook group. You can send me a DM, email, whatever is easiest, and I'm happy to answer any questions, even offline.
And we're here in South Carolina, so it doesn't matter that we have people all across the country. So even though they're not in South Carolina, they can still utilize your services, right?
Absolutely. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So we will end it here. And you know, maybe we'll have you back at some point in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe do a live. We can do a live Q&A. Do some things with
and so this is a very long conversation. So make sure that you all, if you're in your car, play it back when you're in your car, if you're driving for 2 hours or whatever, just to soak in all that we talked about. Make sure that you share this video with your friends, with your colleagues, anybody who you think, you know, there's always a friend who's looking for a job, and you know, maybe they didn't get the job, or maybe they didn't get the first 3 jobs, and maybe they need some advice on how to tweak some things to get into the interview, or to get, you know, to negotiate their salary. So share this video with them, share Jasmine's Instagram, Facebook, website, all of that, and you know, each one teach one. So just make sure you share it, and we will see y'all later. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good evening.